Welcome to the Green Grind Podcast, where we discuss real experience, real struggles, and real business. My name is LeRoy Mains. I'm with Brilliant Borders Landscaping, and we have Kory Ballard with Perfect Cut Site Management and Ballard Innovative Products. As always, we have Kaz, who's the brains of this thing, getting it from our mouth to your ears and eyes. Just a friendly reminder that the Green Grind is sponsored by Jobber and Hustler.
Hey guys, Kory Ballard here with LeRoy. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We were kind of talking about guests and who we're going to get on, and I thought, as much as we talk back and forth, I thought I would interview LeRoy and just really talk about his journey in his business, how he got started, all those things. And so I'm going to interview him today. Hope you guys enjoy what we're going to do today, because we're on here, and I don't know that I probably talk more about Perfect Cut than he does his business, but he's doing some great things. And so, LeRoy, I'm going to
We'll see, I guess.
Maybe grill you a little bit. He doesn't know the questions, and I
have no idea what these are.
I tried to come up with some stuff.
This could be interesting.
But anyways, just so our listeners, I'm going to kind of go off, so our listeners know who you are, LeRoy. Just a little bit about who you are, family, and your background previous to deciding to get into this landscape world.
Sure. So married with 4 children. My wife, Kirsten, works in our business today. Didn't always work in our business, was in once and then left and did something else, and then has come back now and is doing a great job at our front office. We have 4 kids between the 2 of us. We have none together. She has a son, Jacob, from a previous marriage, and I have 3 children from a previous marriage. Lauren, Allison, and Carson. Allie and Carson are twins. Carson, you've heard me talk about him on the show a little bit.
He's on a lawnmower.
He mows for us in the summertime. In fact, he just recently quit his job at the Home Depot so he can come back and mow this summer. I think he loves doing it. So, but prior to Brilliant Borders, I was in sales for a little bit in Des Moines, Iowa, when I first kind of started my career with a company called Competitive Edge, and they sold.
I remember I used them for shirts and stuff way back.
Yeah, advertising products and just coffee mugs with your logo on them and those types of things. And
they fire you?
No, I actually left there. They should have. I tell you what. But we actually sold something for a hotel company, and I got to know the guy running the hotel for a while, and kind of started talking to him a little bit, and ended up going to work for him over in West Des Moines. Selling hotel rooms for him as their sales director, and just trying to get people to come into our hotel. Business travelers. Wells Fargo was down the street. There's just a lot going on out in this area of West Des Moines. So just trying to get their business travelers to come into our hotel, and I guess I must have been halfway successful with that, because at one point they moved me out to called Greensburg, Indiana, a town halfway between Indianapolis and Cincinnati. They opened up a brand new 82-room Holiday Inn Express out there. So they sent me out there to open that hotel. Got it opened up, and they moved me to a bigger hotel in Cincinnati that was more of an extended stay type hotel. And that happened to be, I just hit it off really well there with a guy that happened to run a company around the corner called Procter & Gamble. And just got to know this guy, and they filled our hotel as soon as we opened that place up, and very, very successful there as well, too. And ended up going to work for a company out of Indianapolis as a regional director for them. And they had a bunch of hotels in the South and throughout the Midwest. And one of the bigger things there was we went through, we had some hotels down in Louisiana when Hotel Katrina hit. And so we had some hotels that went through that, or once the hurricane went through there was a pretty big deal, and spent
just wipe them out completely.
Oh no, it didn't. Ours were actually a little more inland, but we had so many people. I mean, we had people sleeping in hallways when that thing went through. Wow. Ours were in Baton Rouge and Shreveport, Louisiana, is where we had them at. And so they weren't destroyed, but we just had people sleeping everywhere. Nobody could get any gas. It was an absolute mess. And I was down there for about a month, and my ex-wife at the time and I had twins. So we had 3 kids, and it just wasn't working very well for us with as much traveling as I was doing with the hotel business, and living away from family. All of our family was still here, and it just wasn't working. So we eventually moved back to Des Moines. I went to work for a company called Stony Creek Inns at that point. A regional manager for them, oversaw a hotel here in Des Moines, one down in St. Joe, Missouri, and then another one that was being opened up as well too, and was doing that deal. And one day came along, and my management style didn't fit what their needs were any longer, and was released from that position. And at this time, I'd been divorced, met my new wife, and went to work for a amusement place out on the east side of Des Moines, running a hotel for them and doing some stuff with their amusement park out there, and that's kind of when Brilliant Borders started to take off. Yeah,
I just learned something because I didn't know. I knew you were in the hotel business, and I didn't know what brought you to Cincy and why you became a Bengals fan, because they sucked for a long time.
They did suck for a long time. We're back though. We're back.
You might be.
We're back until we get a knee rolled up on, and then we're out again.
You're kind of living on one guy out there, but
yeah.
How did you stumble in? I mean, I kind of know this, but how did you stumble into the landscape business? Because you had no background in landscape, which typically isn't the case. Usually, guys cut some grass, and next thing you know, they're landscapers. So, how did you stumble into that business, and how did that look in the beginning?
So, when I married my current wife, Kirsten, she actually she owned Brilliant Borders at the time. She already owned the business.
Still does.
She still does own it. She does a lot better job than I do, by the way, for everybody that's listening. She had bought the business from one of our neighbors named Brent, and was doing some of it, part-time nights, weekends, and at that point it was just the concrete edging borders. That's all it was. It was nothing else. No patios, retaining walls, no plants, nothing. I mean, that's literally all it was. And like I said, I was working for Adventureland out on the east side of Des Moines as their sales director out there, and it was okay. It was an older place, and just I was kind of in the hotel business. Airbnb had already come on. The other what was the other one? VRBO had come on, so that was changing a little bit with the thing, and hotels were starting to pop up on every single corner. So the hotel industry as a whole was getting more and more competitive. And the money just wasn't there. And I could see it was kind of I didn't want to say a dying industry, but it just was, I was kind of tapped out with where I was going with the thing, I guess, unless I was going to go run a hotel out in Vegas, which was always a dream of mine. But that's probably for another day. It's probably a good thing I didn't end up there. So anyway, I was out there doing that, and we had been doing this Brilliant Borders thing part-time, just nights and weekends, just to make a little extra money. We had 4 kids, we were both working for somebody else. It was what it was. And so we started doing this part-time, just evenings and weekends, and just to make a little extra cash. And we got to the point where we were probably, I was probably doing, I would say 50 hours a week, probably with my real job, and doing another 15 to 20, nights and weekends doing the Brilliant Borders thing, just installing these concrete borders.
And you're out there yourself, like literally running the Kirby machine.
It's Kirsten and I, nights and weekends. This is what we're doing to make some extra cash. It's just the two of us out there, getting dirty. I'm making the concrete and schlepping it up and throwing it in the machine. And she's troweling it and designing it and doing the whole thing with the stuff. And
awesome.
Yeah, it was us. So, I don't remember how it happened, but I think it was a deal where, it was just a long week and I'd had enough, and, restless and irritable and mad and came home and had to go pour these borders for somebody probably on some weekend I didn't want to. And I finally just said, this isn't working any longer. I'm burned out. I'm tired. I said, we need to sell this Brilliant Borders thing. It's just not working. Or I need to, or we need to make a run at it. And so we kind of decided a little bit, and we thought about it for a little while, and made the decision to, I was going to leave my job and give this thing a go. And here we are today.
Yeah, because and I know there's a story too that you were going to sell it for little of nothing, right? You had like one truck, one machine.
Yeah, so we got into it. We decided, hey, let's leave our career.
Right.
I don't make real good decisions sometimes I make decisions based on emotion a lot of times, and just, what do I think is going to be best, based out of fear, anger, whatever they are. And so we collectively we made the decision that I was going to leave my career, and we were going to try to make a go of this thing. And we, it was the first year. I know it was the first year, but it was late October, and we were starving. I mean, it was tough. It's just, and you guys know that make the leap from a career to doing the thing. You're trying to figure out the business at the time. You're trying to figure out what your pricing should be. There's just a whole lot that goes into it. And we were buying junk trucks. We didn't have any money to start with, and we probably didn't really have any money to start the business with, but we, woke up on a Saturday and we were supposed to go lay this edging job, and it was like a $1,500 job at the time. And we needed the job to be completed so we could get paid and, feed our family the next day. And we get up and it's sleeting and it's, there's some snow and it's raining and it's cold. And I'm just like, we're done. What are we going to do here? And we've somehow got that job completed the next week and moved on. But we made the decision at that time that, this probably just isn't for us. And called a local guy that our friend Brent knew that she had bought the business from before, and said, hey, are you interested in buying this thing? We'll sell it to you for such and such a price. And it was worth nothing at the time. I mean, it was
Sure.
worth the equipment. I mean, and we know how that is. We think our businesses is valued. You know, it should be worth this much, and it's truly worth this much. And I don't even know if it was worth half of what we were asking for it at the time. But, you know, I look back at that day and kind of think how different our lives would be had he said, sure, I'll buy that from you. Because we would have sold it because we didn't know any better at the time. Right. And fortunately, you know, somehow, some way he didn't buy it and said, no, I'm not interested. And here we are today again that, you know, it worked out and we kept it. Obviously.
Yeah, it's always interesting too how those little things. Had that guy said, "Sure, I'll buy it," you know, offered you $10,000, whatever the number is, 20 doesn't, and you would. Who knows what you would be doing today? Something totally different. And it's interesting when I look back to my past. I mean, how many little decisions I made at different times. Seemed little, but sometimes they were quick, and sometimes they were full of emotion, fear, and totally changed the trajectory of the next 25 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and so
we've had several of those, and I can name 3 or 4 of them right out of the gate of that was what I call a pivotal moment in our business.
Sure.
and absolutely pivotal. And it changed the trajectory of our business, you know, forever.
Yeah. I remember I was on the golf course and a guy called me and said that they had sold out, that we had subcontracted all of our chemical applications to a company called Forever Green, and they sold to TruGreen. And so this guy called me and said, hey, by the way, we just sold to TruGreen, so TruGreen's going to be doing all your lawn apps, and they're going to take care of everything, and the contracts are going to be all in their name. I was on the golf course. I literally put my clubs in the back, drove straight to the office and said, absolutely effing not. No fucking way. And we started calling every customer. I mean, we went to freaking work and hired a guy to do the applications, and within 3 months, we literally had all the customers in our name. We had hired a guy. We had an applicator. I mean, there's so many times that I could have just been like, okay,
right, I guess that's the way it is.
We'll just partner up with TruGreen, and you know, and so big moment there. You kind of answered my question. I was thinking, you know, I had 2 questions here. What did the first few years look like, and then did you have any intention to grow it, or were you just trying to put food on the table? So you don't sell to that guy, and you know, at some point you had to grow, obviously. So what did the first couple years? Were you thinking we're going to build this into something, or were you thinking like, man, we just got to make enough money to live?
I was trying to make enough money to live. You know, I really had no plan with what we were doing. Wasn't thinking much past, you know, the end of next week with how many jobs we have and how do we get more and how do we just continue to get more jobs. And never in my wildest dreams did I think it would be where we are today and what we're doing today and how things are going today. It was more of, you know, let's just figure out a way to survive and see if we can get some food on the table for the next couple of weeks and unload this thing at some point, you know, still trying to think of, you know, what are we going to do future wise? And
so you still didn't think like, yeah, this is a career. It's like, let's just, eventually we'll do something.
I was hoping, you know, I think I was maybe hoping it was, but truly in the back of my head, I didn't think that would ever evolve into something that it is. And so I didn't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. I truly didn't. You know, I wished I would have been able to see that. And I wanted that, but I just didn't see that. I was just like, I don't know if this is going to work.
Sure. How were you getting work in the first place? How was getting the phone to ring? Were you starting to do some marketing at that point?
Yeah, we were doing a little bit of marketing online at that point. You know,
What year, back up real quick, what year
so that would have been 2000 and 2010.
2010, so not that long ago.
No.
I mean, so after really, I guess, God, as well as I know you, I figured I should know more than this, but I thought it was like earlier than that. So that's really kind of after the recession. Des Moines didn't get hit quite as hard as some other areas, but so that you're at 2010. I mean, that's only 13 years ago.
Correct.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So you were doing some marketing at that point, getting the phone to ring. How long before you were actually not literally running a concrete or an edging crew?
I was out for about 1.5 years doing our stuff.
So you were literally still out there?
Yep, because I remember we hired a guy at first. Kirsten eventually went back to work. You know, we were going to try to make a go of it ourselves and just do the whole thing. And we decided very early on that, whoa, you know, we have a family here. We've got to figure some
Somebody's
stuff out.
Somebody's got to get a job.
Yeah, so she went and got a job, and I hired a part-time guy. And, you know, he would work 2 to 3 days a week with me, and I would do what I could on my own. I would go out and prep some jobs. You know, we'd come along, we have to remove some sod, and I would do all that myself. Remove the sod, get it all taken care of. And on the concrete days, he would come in and, you know, he would mix the concrete up, and I would trowel it, and off we'd go and get a couple jobs knocked out and do it that way. And we did that for about 1.5 years. And, you know, it got to the point where we were advertising in enough newspapers and magazines and, you know, a little bit on the internet. The internet wasn't very big for advertising at that point. It was more of, newspapers, and then word of mouth, obviously, and then just some ads. And, we got to the point where it was a little too much for me. So we hired 2 guys and got a couple of guys, and I was doing some estimates and trying to run the business and doing those things. And I didn't know it at the time, but we really weren't making any money. I mean, we were turning some cash and staying afloat barely. We were buying junk trucks and junk equipment because we couldn't afford anything else. It just wasn't really running like a business. And it ran that way for 4 years, just kind of figuring things out and hoping we're doing stuff. And it was about 2 years into it that, somebody said, hey, can you put this patio in for us? And that's kind of where some of the stuff started to really change for us with getting into the landscaping thing. And I would say that was about 2014, probably 13, 14 is when we really started to get more into the landscaping side of things.
Yeah, because that was my next question. Like, how many years did it take until it felt like a company and not just a job? I mean, was there a point there where you were like, okay, we might have something here?
About 5 years, probably.
It took 5 years.
It took 5 years, yeah. Because it was still, the good thing about it, Kory, I was probably naive and stupid enough not to know any better. Anybody.
I say that all the time. Luckily, I was just naive.
Yeah, anybody with any common sense probably would have shut it down after 2 years, 3 years. I just didn't have it at the time and just kept right on going and didn't know any better and just, thought, if we just work a little bit harder, we'll work through this thing. And we eventually did. But we had to be 6 years into it before I truly thought, okay, we've got something here. This is a business. This is sustainable. This is something that we can really do. And one of those things that happened at that 6 year time is 5 year time, we hired this guy named Armando, and Armando was one of those things that changed our business forever.
Right.
So
Because that was one, my questions, and he's still with you today.
Still with us today.
And I say that all the time, man. Sometimes it's just one person that absolutely changes, and then it opens your eyes to like, holy shit, we can do patios, we can do hardscape. Like we've got a qualified one guy or 2 guys, whatever it looks like. Was there a point that you thought we made it? Is that 2023? Was that 2015? Is there a point when you thought to yourself, like you're driving to, backing up, where were you running the business out of?
So we started a lot of different places, actually. We started in our home. We were at one point in our home. The trailer was backed up in the driveway. Our neighbors had to just be thrilled with us, But from there, we moved. There was a place right over here actually off 100th Street, kind of behind some of these buildings that Anderson Properties owned. So we rented a little bit of space from them at one point. Eventually outgrew that and moved to down on MLK and Euclid. There's an old lumber yard there. So rented some space from there, and then from that point we moved to our current location where we're at now, which we're completely out of space. And
you got a mess here, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Get a building.
We're trying. There's nothing to buy.
Was there a point when you were driving in, or was there a point at some point, like, man, I think we made it, or
probably realistically about a year ago.
Really?
I walked out of my office and there was something that we had on the bulletin board over here, and it was something, and I just kind of looked at it for a second. I was the last one in the office. It was 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and I kind of looked at it and I'm like, I looked back into my office and we had all of our green grind stuff was set up here, and I'm like, this has turned into something that never did I think it would be this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's just like we've and we've got the employees now, and we just have a lot of this stuff, and I sometimes sit back and wonder, how the hell did we get here?
Yeah.
How did we get to this point of doing what we're doing in revenue and having this many people and running the way it's supposed to run and having the connections that we have? Because it doesn't seem like that long ago. We woke up on that Saturday like, how are we going to feed our family next week? I mean, it really wasn't that long ago. But I don't know. It just, some days it just seems like, how the hell did we get here?
I say that all the time. I mean, and it's a weird thing because I've been doing this a long time as well. And it's almost like an imposter syndrome at times. I mean, I've mentioned on the podcast and to you probably even off, but like I'll go to our safety meeting or our company outings, and we had our spring kickoff meeting, and I'm just sitting up on we have our shop manager's office is raised up, and I sit up there, and we've got 100 and some people in this room, and I'm watching my CFO speak and my COO speak and my Matt Bowman, the president, speak, and we've got this shop all kick-ass looking and slides, and we're giving out presentation awards for Employee of the Year and Salesman of the Year, and I sometimes sit up there and I'm thinking, well, I don't even know how this happened. Like I was just running a freaking lawnmower. I mean, and it feels like not that long ago. I was just running a lawnmower, and then I was designing landscaping with no freaking experience for a builder, and then I'm like, we should buy a ditch witch, and we're going to put in irrigation, and I hired a guy. I mean, like it happens, and it's such a weird thing. Sometimes there's even times today that I'm like, man, I'm lucky. Holy shit.
I was thinking this weekend I was gone for a while and I came back on my way back yesterday. I was kind of thinking to myself, I remember wanting, just thinking, gosh, someday we're going to get a $5,000 job. Yep. Someday, and we got a $5,000 job and we were ecstatic. It was the best thing that ever happened. It's like, we've made it, we've made it. And now it's like, gosh, it just blows my mind to think of where we were at and where we are today. It's kind of the same thing with equipment. I was like, God, someday we're going to own a skid loader. I'd love to own a skid loader someday. Now we have several of them and it's like, God, I'd love to get rid of those damn skid loaders. They cost so much money. But
yeah, it's awesome, dude. It's what have you learned about yourself and your leadership? Because, man, we talk about it. We're in the people business. What have you learned just on this journey about yourself and being a leader of, I don't know how many people you have now, 30?
We have 27 today. Okay. So
maybe 26 tomorrow.
Yeah, you never know. I've learned about myself that the guy in charge sets the tone for the day, without a doubt. The owner of the company, without a doubt, sets the tone for everything that they do. And I have to remember that, and sometimes I'm not very conscious of that. I can come in and just be like a fuse, a tornado some days in people's lives. And I have to remember that I set the tone for this thing. And I've learned that about myself. And I've learned that, if I set that tone and I make sure that our people are ready, that we can do that. I've learned that one thing that I've learned, and kind of toot my own horn here, is I've learned that I'm a pretty good leader. Our people stick around our organization, and I believe that's because of the leadership that we have. And I know how to treat people, and I know how to motivate people, and I can get people to do a lot of what we want. One of the big downsides to that, as we all know, is they start making a fortune from you. However, that's not a bad thing. So what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Well, what have you learned about yourself and your leadership? And I think you answered that for sure. It's interesting how, you have to continue to change too. I mean, the way you led 5 years ago is different than you lead today.
It's completely different. It's completely different.
And what have you learned from me?
Everybody needs led differently as well too, and that's one of the things that is difficult for, I think, a lot of people to understand, is you can't treat all two people. You can't treat every person that walks into your office the same. Everybody has to be touched differently. Everybody has to be talked to differently. One way I might talk to one of my foremans is completely different than the way I have to talk to another one. And you just have to learn those styles about their people and how they operate and how to talk to them.
I'm glad you said that, because I've mentioned that so many times that, back when I was super involved in Perfect, there would be guys I could pull aside and be like, "Hey, dude, what the fuck is going on? Like, what? Tell me what's up." Like, and then there's people that you'd have to go in in soft approach. Hey, man, can you tell me how you feeling? Is there something going on? Is there something going on at home? And there's people that you can. Everybody takes a different management style, and you have to kind of figure out, how do I get the most out of them and make them feel like they're a part of something special, because they are. So you just have to navigate your people so much different. And I didn't know that in the beginning. I was a hothead. I chased a guy around a truck and trailer one time in front of my entire staff. And then when I got done, I thought, oh my God, what have I just done? What have I just done? Yeah. I literally was chasing him. If I could have got my hands on him, we were fighting. He didn't want to fight, but I did. And
great culture, Kory.
I did though.
I get it.
I pulled guys. I remember a guy, said something to me one time. I pulled him out of the cab in front of everybody. I just was different, and I don't act like that today.
I've often said, and not just at Brilliant Borders, but when I've managed hotels and those kinds of things, managing people is the hardest thing that anybody will ever do in their career, in my opinion, because it's so different. And even today, it's even more different, I believe, than it used to be, because of the worker shortage and all the types of things. But managing people is so difficult, and I can't tell you the number of people that we have brought into our organization to be a manager and manage, and the people have run them out, because they just because you've run your own company doesn't mean you can manage people. It's not the case.
For sure. Knowing what you know today, what are the top 3 things that you would have done different, faster, better? What would you have done different knowing what you know today?
Several things. One of them being systems would have been in place from day one.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, because we have spent the last 2 years getting systems in place in our business, because we grew so quickly, we just didn't have them. And that would have been done day one. We would have, in backing that up as well too a little bit, we would have slowed down the growth of our company. We grew extremely quickly. You know, we went from in 2010 doing basically nothing to $4 million last year, and it's like, you know, that's some quick growth, and we just can't. We couldn't keep up with it, and so it was for lack of a better word, it was a shit show for several years here. You know, we didn't know what the left hand was doing. This crew didn't know what this crew was doing. You know, we had stuff scheduled with the same equipment on same day. It was a mess, and so that would have completely changed. Software would have been integrated much quicker. I
figured that one was coming
in our company, without a doubt. That would have been done 5 years ago rather than 3 years ago. Maybe even several years before that, and then paid more attention to the people that we were hiring and how we treated the people in our organization. Would have been another huge change.
Absolutely. I figured that I knew software would be in there for sure. You know, there's a big fear with software. I remember it. I mean, I put software in place really way back, but I can't tell you how many times that we should have upgraded or changed, and it was just a huge fear. Like, I mean, how are we going to get our customers exported? And oh my God, it's going to be a nightmare.
And we've had QuickBooks from day one, but we just didn't have any operating software of how to operate our business on a daily basis. You know, budgeting software. There were times, you know, we hired a general manager, 6 years ago, probably 6 years ago, 5 to 6 years ago, and at that point, we didn't even have paper, you know, job sheets of what they were doing. He comes in, he's like, how the hell are your people getting the thing? Well, we write it on the board up here. No. You know, right. So we switched that. And then, you know, a few years ago when we put in the software, it's like, well, we can't go from these job tickets to software. They'll never get it. You know, now it's like, well, why didn't we do that a long time ago?
But you've changed software 2 times that I know of, right?
Twice, yeah. And we may need to change a third too. Who knows?
But that's the whole. I like though that you're not scared to do that, guys. I mean, just because you have some software that's working, if there's better software, better equipment, better ways to take care of your people, I mean, you just put another software in place, which we'll get to on job costing, and you're paying your people. But it's like just because you have some software, it doesn't mean you got to stick with it forever. If you've got Jobber, and I love Jobber, and you outgrow it, then you just outgrow it.
Yeah, and that's what happens is in our experience has been as our companies continued to grow, we've outgrown the software that we've been using. You know, I look at it now as, you know, what's important to our business today wasn't as important 2 years ago. Sure. You know, and so as we're job costing and as we need more reporting and we just need more data, the bigger our business gets, I need more data to figure out what we're doing. And some of these softwares just don't provide that data. And there's nothing wrong with them. It did it at the time, but for what we need today, it just doesn't work.
You know, and I think both of us have probably learned a lot just doing this podcast because, man, we've talked to, now we're on episode, 110. We've talked to small guys, big guys. Yep. We've learned about people. We've learned about software. We've learned about insurance, investing. I mean, we've done a lot of things, and I still get something out of it, and I know you do as well. And it seems like from me watching your business from the 10,000-foot view, the culture's changed. The trucks look better. I can tell you 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been like, he runs an okay company, but his trucks are kind of shitty. Oh, yeah. The logo's not amazing. You're in uniform today. Your people are in uniform. Your trucks look good. Man, when I come in here, like it just seems different today. I mean, you know, when did you realize, like, man, we gotta like work on the logo. We gotta look on the, you know, you've mentioned like the color. I mean, like, your green's pretty close. Like, no, that doesn't, like, this is what we do. When did you realize the company needed a culture shift and just an image upgrade, overhaul?
So I would say probably about 4 years ago, I started to feel pretty stagnant in our business. And it was just kind of you know, we'd grown and we weren't, you know, it was really fun early on because we're doubling our revenue, you know, every single year. And this is cool, you know, we just hit 1 million, boom, we hit 2 million, boom, you know, and that's a lot of fun. And you know, you kind of get to the $2.5, $3 million mark, and it's like, okay, we're just doing the same thing over and over again. And, you know, it was, in my mind, my perception was way off on this, by the way, but I thought things were running okay in our business. So I kind of took my foot off the gas of, hey, you know, we've made it here, you know, 3-4 years ago.
Let's go ride motorcycles.
Yeah, we're doing exactly, and that's what happened. And you know, we're doing well, and so I'm going to start doing some more traveling and enjoying some time, you know, enjoying the freedoms that should become with a business owner, in my mind, of what I thought. You know, I'm a business owner. I should be able to go spend some money. I should be able to go travel with my buddies and do these types of things. And when that started happening, you know, things started to kind of slowly go downhill a little bit. And I've often said that, you know, nobody cares as much as the owner of the company. I don't care. You can have a great right-hand man, but they're not going to mortgage their house for your business. Yep. Whereas a business owner, I believe, probably would. So I kind of let my foot off the gas. I'd go to the gym in the middle of the day. I would, do those types of things. And it started to slowly deteriorate. And what I started to realize, Kory, was we had a lot of jobs that we were going back to. Our Google reviews weren't quite as good. And the bottom line is we just weren't making quite as much money as we used to be making.
Right.
And it turns out that when you aren't paying attention to your business, people steal from you. Things don't run the way they're supposed to. Jobs aren't done quite as good. You're going back to more projects, and that all just takes away from your profits. And when you start, there's a really weird thing in this landscaping thing and this lawn mowing thing is when you don't do really good work, you start to lose customers.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you start to lose revenue. It's really weird how all that stuff works together, but it does. And so, I got a little more engaged, and we had a couple of people that just weren't working for us. They'd been working for us. They just weren't working out any longer for us. One being a mowing guy that, that we tried several times. We've talked about this, a few times on the thing. And I had somebody running our front office that was, not doing the right things as well too. And we had an employee stealing gas from us. I mean, it was just for lack of a better word, a clusterfuck. And this was 2 years ago. And I sat down, and my wife and I sat down, and I was looking around. I'm like, we've got a huge problem here. And so we really started to focus on what we were doing and paying attention and getting more engaged in our business and starting to figure out, okay, this isn't right. This isn't the way we want it to run. And I think a lot of what really made me realize it is talking to a lot of these people on our podcast. Yeah. It's like, if we're going to continue to do what the big guys do and do big boy revenue and figure out to make this last long term, we've got to change some of the stuff we're doing because we're not going to be in business another 5 years if we continue to do it this way.
And it's amazing when you start doing those things, you actually get more freedom, but you've got to take action. So you can sit around and talk about it. And I've said numerous times on this podcast, I think you get to that revenue point, you get to a point where you're kind of burnt out a little bit, and then you start to just accept mediocrity.
That's exactly what happened.
We're pretty good. I still get to ride my motorcycle. I mean, you and I would go on motorcycle trips, and my phone's blowing up, and you're like, dude, I ain't got a call in 2 days. Mm-hmm. Is that good that you didn't get a call or bad? But you were like, it's running pretty good.
At the time, it was good.
Yeah,
knowing what I know now.
Yeah, and so you start to kind of accept that we're pretty good. Shit's running okay. My phone's not blowing up. I remember, I think you said something to me one time, like, I don't care how much money you make, that fucking looks miserable. Because I was on my phone the whole time.
You were, yeah,
and
absolutely.
I was growing Ballard at a rapid rate, and I was glued to everything. And I, again, had to put good people in place, and it was a shit show at the time. And now I don't have to, I'm still busy, but not like I was. But when you start to build culture, expectations, accountability, get the right people in place, all that's a lot of work, but then you get all that freedom back. It's
crazy how it works. And what I didn't know was what I call the cumulative effect of running a mediocre business. And what happens is, when they see that the owner is not on top of their game or not involved, or I shouldn't say not involved, but not 100% involved, and somebody else is starting to run the reins. Well, as I said before, they don't care quite as much. And if they don't care quite as much, then an employee isn't going to care quite as much.
It just trickles down.
And it slowly starts to trickle down. And when they don't care as much, they might take something and whip it in the side of the truck. And so they might dent your truck. Well, nobody says anything that day, so they think it's okay to do that stuff. And so we continue just to, what we allow, we teach. And so we continue to allow these things, and we teach them that, it's okay to just do these things. And it's okay to have shit falling out of your truck when you turn a corner, or those kinds of, and so that the cumulative effect just continues to snowball and snowball. And you can't get ahead of that thing. No. Once it starts going the wrong way, you're in a lot of trouble. And we were in a lot of trouble.
Right. And I remember numerous times people saying, man, if I owned Perfect Cut, I wouldn't even be there, man, you've made it. Yeah. And I'm like, and I did. I can tell you over the course of 25 years, there was years where I was crazy engaged. Like, man, I was there at 5:30 every morning. And then there was years where I'd roll in at 8:30, thinking, what time can I zip out of here and get lunch? About 2:45, 3 o'clock, I'd take off, maybe play some golf. I remember there was a point where I golfed. I met a guy at the Ankeny Country Club. I played golf every single day. I played 9 holes. I'd meet him at about 8:30. I'd zip in the office real quick, make sure all the trucks kind of went out. Mm-hmm. I'd meet him. We'd shoot 9 holes real quick. I'd go grab a bite to eat, get back to the office about 12:30, make sure there's no fires to put out, But I would be there just to be seen. I remember there'd be times that I'd be sitting in my office thinking, it's almost 3. They got to just see my truck here. I was bringing no value. And then I'd get re-engaged again. And I know Matt went through that many times too, where we, one or both of us would just get disengaged. And you know what happened? We started kind of being average. We started again, profits went down. People were starting to leave. The culture was not great. And, we had 100 plus employees, and it was just, we were okay. And then all these clients that we thought they're not going to go anywhere. You start losing one, then you lose two, and all of a sudden it's like, fuck, we got a mess.
Yeah.
And now we got to do some real work.
Yeah, and you have to pull it back together. But, it just, doing average is, I don't know what changed in us and to think that it was just okay to be average, because it didn't start out that way.
Sure.
It started out as we're going to be awesome, we're going to set the world on fire, and we're going to crush it. And when we started doing that, you let your foot off the gas just a little bit and you start to slide backwards. And it's like, holy cow, and it was far more backwards than we thought it was.
Sure.
And it wasn't that it was a disaster, but it wasn't operating the way that I wanted it to operate. So
what's the future of Brilliant Borders? I mean, you're at you mentioned about 4 million. Is there a sweet spot for your company? I mean, or do you think, hey man, I'd like to get to 10? Or is there a spot where you're like, man, 5's the number, or do you not know?
Well, we're really pushing on the gas here. We're going to really grow to 7 to 8 is what we want to do.
Nice.
We've made some changes with our leadership around here this year, which to get some growth going. And we've promoted a couple of guys, and we've locked a couple of them in long term, I believe anyway, with some salaries and those kinds of things, and given them some great benefits to do. And we're going to start to put our foot on the gas a little bit more and continue to do this thing.
Well, you've teamed up with a marketing company, which is, again, I think it's a big piece of it. You got to get that phone to ring. You've added the software in place, which we don't have to get way into, but you've added software that. You said you're more profitable than ever. Your people are making more money than ever. Do you want to just touch on that just briefly?
Yeah, and that's part of the cumulative effect, and it's the opposite cumulative effect. When I started to get more engaged and brought my wife back in, and she started to run our front office, and it starts to run really, really well. We start to get more profitable, and when we become more profitable, we can invest back into our business. And when we invest back into our business, our employees can make more money. We've invested in this software, and we've talked about it on one of our podcasts, but I shouldn't say every, but 90% of our jobs are bonus, our employees, our team members can bonus off of them. And they know going into the job exactly what the hours are. And so say, just as round numbers, say the job is set for 100 man hours, and they complete the job in 95 man hours. Well, that additional 5 hours, just say they're worth, let's just say $25 an hour, whatever the average employee hour is making. So they just bonused, $150 off that project. So, or I'm sorry, $125 off that project, and it's split between the two of them. So they made $50 for an extra $50 of the work. So they're making an extra $1 an hour, and they see this thing going in. It's right on their phone app.
Yeah, they got a sweet app.
It works really, really well. And so far this year, we've averaged about 14%. Our hourly employees have increased their wages.
Think about it. So they're making 14% more. You're getting your jobs done on time, the only reason they're bonuses is because you're beating the hours.
They're getting done faster.
So you're not doing the callbacks. So your jobs are more profitable. Your people are making more money, and guess what? They're not going to leave.
Yeah, and they're not leaving. They're not going anywhere.
They can't. I mean, I shouldn't say they can't. That's not. But they're seeing that there's, again, when you align your interest with their interest, everybody wins.
They're making more money. They're being treated better. They understand that, and they see those things, and And like we've told them, we went out and bought a couple of stand-on loaders for them this year. And we said, guys, when we buy these types of things, it's because you guys do the great work. You make it happen that we can go buy these things. Now we have these loaders. So rather than wheelbarrowing the rock up, they're all running these little small Vermeer loaders and running the rock up. So that makes, again, that cumulative effect, now we're more profitable and faster because of those machines. And it just continues to snowball and run in the right direction. It's just amazing when things start to go in the right direction. You just do a few key little things here and there, how big of a difference those things make.
But you did say something there that it makes so much sense. When you're profitable, you can do so much. You can just run your business different, man. When you're trying to figure out how to make payroll on Friday and you're fucking out of money and you can't market the way you want to market, and man, it's so tough. I've been there, and but when you have cash, it's like, oh shit, we can provide better uniforms, better equipment, we can pay our people better, we can. All of a sudden, everything just starts to run better. But you've got to be profitable. But it's tough when you don't have money. And I remember, so many times trying to figure out how we're going to make payroll Friday. Like, holy shit! Like, we got to get those checks in. Like, run into the freaking mailbox.
But it's exactly the opposite. So, it snowballs both ways. So when you're profitable, it snowballs to the great direction. When you're not profitable, it snowballs. It takes you further into the hole, because you're exactly correct. So you can't. And we've had it before. I don't know how we're going to make payroll on Friday. Well, a check comes in, and fortunately we got another one quick on Monday, and slam those things in the bank. Whew, we made it.
Yep.
But what that forces us to do is, okay, so now I've got to take this job because I actually need the cash to come in so I can cover this. And shit, my truck just broke down. Well, now I can't afford to fix it's a disaster when those things happen.
With all this money you're making, when are you going to get a new facility?
God, we're trying. There's nothing out there to buy.
I know,
so
it's tough.
We've actually made offers on 3 different places. One of the offers was accepted and just wasn't working with the city. The other guy had to do an exchange. So, he's going to sell one building and has to invest in another one. So that one didn't work out. And we're just continuing to look. I think we've got maybe a lead on a piece of ground or 2 here coming up. And I don't know what we're going to do.
We might have to build.
I think that's what we're going to end up having to do is buy a piece of ground.
It's a huge investment, but you can build it the way you want to build it. Try to find the right piece of ground, but it's tough. There's just not much out there.
Yeah, we've looked several places, and with we're kind of pigeonholed onto this one side of town because now our marketing is all focused on this side of town, and so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go clear 30 minutes the opposite direction to buy a building and do those things, and which is where the cheaper ground is right now. But I think you're exactly correct. We're just gonna have to bite the bullet and move on.
We're gonna wrap this up a little bit, but I got some questions. What's your biggest regret in business, not life? Biggest regret in business so far?
Boy, wasn't quite ready for that. I don't know. My biggest regret would probably be not paying attention to things when I should have been paying attention to things. I just look back and I think if I'm being honest, we've probably lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because of just not paying attention to things throughout the years going on. Okay. And not having my foot on the gas and being 100% involved in my business.
I was thinking you might have said, maybe keeping people on too long, which is one of my regrets always. I can tell you throughout the years, man, there's people that I should have let go a year, 2 years sooner. But yeah, there's a lot of them. But yeah, that's
yeah, and we've done that, believe me, and we've. Well, Kory, I've hired people back that I've fired and should have fired, 6 months before I fired them the first time.
Right.
And it just, so I just have a heart for people sometimes, and I should let people go much sooner than I do sometimes, but I just don't do that sometimes.
Yeah, me either. Growth or profit?
Profit.
100%. I knew the answer to that
There
one.
should be no question with that.
I know the answer to this one too, but you want more money or more time?
No, more time. 100%.
More time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's the best business advice you'd give to the guy? I don't need your best business advice in general. What the best business advice that you would give to somebody that's out there struggling right now and they're running a business any size, they're stagnant, they're frustrated, it's spring, they can't get people, maybe they're not profitable. What would you tell that guy or gal that they need to focus on, or what could you tell them?
I'd tell them don't quit. There was a time when I wanted to quit, and I look back today, and it would have been the worst mistake I ever made. Don't quit.
I like it.
Keep going, because you never know what's around that corner. You never know when that next deal's coming. You never know when that next guy that's going to walk in and change your business. You just don't know that. So keep going.
I like it. You're going to be out at LAL this year. I'm just going to promote you real quick.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, Brian Fullerton does his LAL every year, and LeRoy's going to be speaking out there. Guys, if you don't get to those things, the LAL is a great one. Obviously, Equip Expo, but man, spend some money getting out there and talking to people. Equip Expo is about equipment for the most part, but man, there's still a ton of networking events and talking to people doing business, and there's going to be great speakers at Brian's event. LeRoy's going to get up there and talk about his business, and I believe maybe talk about, by then you're going to have a ton of data on what this software is.
I think what we're going to talk about, and I haven't cleared this 100% with Brian, so hopefully we don't give away too much information, but I think we're going to talk about, going from, how do you go from a sole proprietor to actually having a business and something that might be saleable in the future? And right. So I'm going to kind of hopefully cover some of that ground and, kind of how we did it a little bit and some things to do and just some things to put in place so you can, go from that 1 to 2 guys that, you just have kind of a job to something that you might be able to sell someday for, for pretty decent retirement.
Well, because you've mentioned, at some point, maybe what's this, if the kids don't want the company, which I don't think they do, what do I do with this thing?
Right.
I mean, we're still young enough that we can run it for, 5, 10, 15 more years. But again, at some point, you're going to want to sell this thing. And to do that, you've got to have all the things in place. I just went through it. I mean, you've got to have something of real value. And
yeah, our CPA last week actually asked us. He said, "I've got a couple business brokers looking for stuff. Are you interested?" And I'm just like,
what's the number?
We're not quite there yet. We're just I know what it's probably worth, and we're not ready yet. So
awesome. Well, interesting. I mean, I hope our guys learned something about the business. You know, LeRoy, it's, you know, I know you really well, but it is pretty crazy. I mean, I come into your place, I see your stuff. It's fun to watch, and you know, I've been there too. It's so interesting that you know, sometimes I literally want to pinch myself occasionally. I'm like, there's times that I'm driving, I'm like, man, holy shit, how did I? And then I start to think, am I lucky? Well, there's luck sometimes, but man, you got to put the work in. And I think back to your wife out there frickin' putting concrete edging in and fucking sleeting.
Man, it was. It was, and you know, business ownership is tough. It's really tough, and I don't think people understand how difficult it can be at times. But on the flip side of that, it can be so freaking rewarding. And and what's rewarding to me today is not what was rewarding 4 years ago, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. You know, to me, you know, we have a guy, Kory, that has come into our organization and has got his citizenship.
Yeah.
You know, and seeing stuff like that happen, and seeing, you know, this guy came across the border illegally. Got his citizenship here, and he's a foreman of our company, and he's probably our second in charge right now because he's just phenomenal at what he does, and he makes a killer living. He's got a company truck, and you know, just kills it. And just see stuff like that happen, awesome. Man, it's life changing to watch that stuff happen. It's great.
That's where the reward is. I say it all the time. Like, I just love seeing people succeed underneath me, and not underneath me necessarily in that way, but working side by side. Even our company at Ballard, watching our people buy their first house and being able to compensate them well. And my brother works for me now, and he just bought a new house, and he can take care of his kids. And we do a bonus program, and it's like seeing those guys get their incentive after a great month. It's like that's where it's at for me.
Yeah, we had a couple of our two of our guys. I think one last year and one the year prior bought homes, you know, first homes ever. And they're just ecstatic about it. And it's to see that happen. It's super cool to see that kind of stuff happen and be like, gosh, you know, and I look today and I think, you know, my job as a business owner is so much more serious than just running our business, because we're in charge of, I just shouldn't say in charge, but you know, we're trying to help these people, these other 27 people out there, build their lives and their families and things.
There's a lot of responsibility.
It's a huge responsibility. And I didn't think of that when we first started our business, you know, and I think about that today, and, you know, that's the kind of shit that'll keep me up at night now.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Awesome, man. Good stuff. Guys, we drop a new episode of The Green Grind every Tuesday. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say this, but if you think you would be a good guest or you know somebody, you can find us on all the different social media channels, but you can also jump on the Ballard website, and there's a Green Grind logo. Just click on that. It shoots me a direct email, and we will be back next Tuesday with another episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. LeRoy, I appreciate you answering my dumb questions.
No, not at all. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, guys.